Good morning, everyone. Wishing everyone a very happy Holi, first of all, the festival of colors. And today, here we are going to read about the college days, chapter 4 of from the book called Life of Swami Vivekananda by his Western and Eastern disciples. The other three chapters are being uploaded in my YouTube channel. So, anyone who is not able to attend the book reading live sessions here on Twitter can check out my YouTube link and listen to the chapters being read at their own convenient time. So, it's available in my uh, news feed, in my timeline on Twitter, the link to my YouTube channel. So, let me just start the college days, chapter 4. Narendranath entered the first year arts class of the General Department of Presidency College in January 1880. He had just turned 17 and had grown to manhood's stature. He was muscular, agile, and inclined to stoutness. Since the college was run by the government and the professors were for the most part Europeans, it was incumbent upon the students to attend in either European dress or in Indian chapkan and trousers. They were also required to wear a wristwatch. Of these two, Narendranath preferred to dress himself in alpaca chapkan, a kind of loose and long robe and trousers, and wore a Swiss-made wristwatch. He regularly attended the Presidency College for 1 year, but in the second year he contracted malaria, as a result of which his class attendance fell short, and he was not allowed to appear in the first arts, that is the FA examination. But the General Assembly's institution, founded by the Scottish General Missionary Board and now known as the Scottish Church College, accepted him and sent him up for the FA examination. Hard study on the eve of the entrance examination, together with his ascetic practices, had already impaired his health to some extent. So before taking the FA examination, Narendranath went to Goa for a change to recover his health and returned to Calcutta only a few months before the examination. In 1881, he passed the first arts examination in the second division and continued to study in the same institution until he passed his Bachelor of Arts examination in 1884. In connection with this Scottish charge, it may be mentioned here that when Narendranath returned to Calcutta from the West in January 1897 as the famous Swami Vivekananda, it was the students of the college who stopped the carriage in which he was riding with some of his European and Indian admirers, unharnessed the horses, and drew the carriage themselves. The memory of Narendranath as a student is still with the institution. Narendranath's college days were marked by tremendous intellectual ferment and spiritual upheaval, which will reveal themselves as we review these years in more detail. The curriculum he had pursued for the F examination was almost an extension of the subjects he had offered for the entrance examination. In addition to English, second language, history and mathematics, he had offered logic and psychology for his FA examination. He had chosen the same subjects for his BA examination, also only with the difference that logic and psychology had been replaced by philosophy in the advanced course. He preferred these subjects for study because, with the guidance of his father, he believed that they, best of all, conduced to the development and refinement of the mind and sensibility. He was devoted to literature and made great headway in the arts of composition and rhetoric. He evinced keen interest in philosophy and logic and in some forms of higher mathematics. He grew more reserved while following these studies, discovering that his development lay along the lines of intense learning. He made great efforts to master the English language and more specifically in the arts of conversation and debating, in which he excelled. Indeed, he became virtually the leader of the college in this regard. Narendranath was not in the habit of limiting his studies to the university curriculum. During the first 2 years of college, he acquired a thorough grasp of the masterpieces of Western logic, and in the third and fourth year, he set himself to mastering Western philosophy as well as the ancient and modern history of different nations of Europe. It was in November 1881, while Narendranath was in the second year of the FA classes, that he met for the first time Sri Ramakrishna Paramhansa at the house of Sri Surendranath Mitra of Shimulya. It will be interesting to note here how he first came to hear of the great saint. Professor William Hastie, the noted scholar, was at that time the principal of the General Assembly's institution. One day, during the absence of the professor of English, he took over the literature class. He was explaining Wordsworth's Excursion, where the state of trance is referred to, and of which the poet had had a glimpse while contemplating the beauties of nature. But the students did not understand what he meant by trance. Professor Hastie then said, such an experience is the result of purity of mind and concentration on some particular object, and it is rare indeed, particularly in these days. I have seen only one person who has experienced that blessed state of mind, and he is Ramakrishna Paramhans of Dakshineshwar. You can understand if you go there and see for yourself. It was thus that Naren first heard of his future master and through the Brahmo Samaj of which he was a member. Those who were Narendranath's friends and acquaintances at college remembered him as regal in his bearing and self-confident, as though royally born. He attracted the attention of both Indian and English professors who recognized his ambitious mind and the latent powers of his personality. About him, Principal William Hastie said, Narendranath is really a genius. I have travelled far and wide, but I have never yet come across a lad of his talents and possibilities. Even in German universities amongst philosophical students, he is bound to make his mark in life. After passing the FA examination, Narendranath remarkable originality in his intellectual pursuits. He would test everything by argument. Even in the hours of recreation, he would continue discussions that had commenced in the hours of study. He would argue with those who challenged his point of view and invariably argued with success. He was a lion among the students, defiant of conventional thought. He was vehement, of untiring energy, and his topics of conversation were endless. During his college days, he underwent a wonderful psychological transformation. His mind became intensely analytical, and it was in this becoming that he subordinated imagination to the demands of reason. He related himself also to the needs and spirit of his times and subjected Hinduism to a severe analysis. It will be seen later on to what this led. He demanded that his own freedom of belief be respected, whatever the character of that belief, and he was literally voracious of information. Furthermore, he was a born idealist, seeker of truth, not content with mere worldly enjoyments. He longed to pierce the veil of nature, but his reason had to be satisfied at the same time. Beneath the surface of his conscious mind ran the strong current of desire for reality, which made him aware from his earliest years that his life was to be different from the rest of mankind. Let it not be imagined, however, that Narendranath had grown unduly serious in other things. There was another side to him that relieved the seriousness of his intellectual temperament. He was as keen for adventure as ever. He was the wit among the students and the first to see the humorous side of a situation. They were a cheerful lot that mixed with him in his college days. And out of an excursion there was no one jollier than he. Many were the times when they would pack themselves into a hackney carriage and go singing through the repair to the Ganga for a bath and swim, making religion a joyful matter. On other public festivals, they would go out at night through the lighted streets in eager pursuit of interesting sights and festivities. Norin was always the leader. He knew that they had full measure of fun and benefit from every occasion. The recreations in which they indulged were of the manly sort. During these days, Narendranath unconsciously wove about himself the threads of many friendships which remained with him to the end. One of his specialities during college life was a dislike of foppishness. He could not tolerate the dandy and would speak openly to the fellow who made it his sole business to dress well. He hated any tendency to effeminacy in manner or apparel. A characteristic of Narendranath was his solicitude for others. For instance, it was customary in those days for the General Assembly's institution to help those who, for lack of funds, could not pay the required fees. There was also provision for exemption from college dues in special cases, but the need of an applicant for funds or for exemption had to be substantiated before his name could be put on the free list. Rajkumar, a senior clerk, was in charge of making decisions in such matters. Now, it so happened that Haridas Chattopadhyay, a classmate of Narendranath, was in great financial difficulty before the examination. He could not pay the accumulated college dues, nor was it easy for him to pay the examination fees. Narendranath assured his friend that he would see what could be done. After 1 or 2 days, when a crowd of students had assembled at the counter at Rajkumar's office to deposit dues and fees, Narendranath made his way through the crowd and said to Rajkumar, "Sir, Haridas is incapable of paying his dues. Will you kindly exempt him? If you send him up for the examination, he will pass with credit. Otherwise, he will be undone." "Your presumptuous recommendation is uncalled for," said Rajkumar. "You had better oil your own machine. I won't send him unless he pays his dues." Thus rebuffed, Narendranath left the place, and his friend was naturally disappointed. But Narendranath consoled him, saying, "Why are you giving way to despair? The old man is in the habit of giving such rebuffs. I tell you, I shall find a way out for you, so be at rest." After college hours, instead of returning home, Narendranath searched out the opium smoking den to which Rajkumar usually resorted. As the darkness of the evening gathered, sure enough Rajkumar was espied stealthily advancing towards the den. With surprising suddenness, Narendranath presented himself before the old man and stood in his way. Rajkumar, though puzzled at the sight of Narendranath at such a place and time, kept his nerve and said as calmly as he could, "What's the matter, Datta? You are here?" Narendranath again presented his plea on behalf of Haridas and added that if the request were ignored, he would publicize in the college Rajkumar's frequenting the opium smoking den. "Well, my dear, why are you so angry?" said the old man. "What you want will be done. Can I ever ignore your request?" And he considered that the arrears of the college dues of Haridas would be remitted, but he would be required to pay the examination fees. Narendranath agreed to this and took leave of him. Early next morning, before sunrise, Narendranath went to Horidas' house and, after knocking at the door, sang the song. In this pure, pellucid dawn, meditate on Brahman of incomparable glory. Behold the newly risen sun, the light of its lovely face showing on the mountain top, the sweet breeze blowing on this auspicious day pours nectar while singing his glory. Let us all go to the abode of God with offerings of love in our hearts. Then he said to us, come, be of good cheer. Your work is done. You will not have to pay the college dues. And he narrated the incident of the previous evening with all his mimicry and dramatic skill and raised a storm of laughter. A friend of Narendranath's refers to him in a manner that gives one an insight into the nature of the feelings that all his friends bore for him at this time. It was delightful to listen to him. His voice was like music to us. We would often open a subject for discussion just for the pleasure of hearing him. He was so interesting and above all so original. We learned much from listening to him. Did anyone oppose him, however, he would fall upon him with all his power of thought and language and would vanquish the opponent in no time. Even in those days, he detested any sort of weakness. He was a great admirer of Napoleon and tried to impress upon us that the followers of any great cause must give the unquestioning obedience which Marshal Ney showed to his emperor. He was kindness itself to us. I remember one striking instance of this. Having heard that he was ill with fever, I repaired to his grandmother's house. I found him almost helpless, yet he insisted upon serving me. I was his guest, he said, and he was the host. I remonstrated, but he persisted. He rose from the floor and busied himself preparing the hookah for me with his own hands. A servant of the family entered the room and was horrified to see Noreen at this. The servant looked upon his master as a devotee looks upon a saint. To him, Narendranath was everything, and he scolded his charge, urging him to rest. Examinations are a trial to students in every country. In India, they are especially a trial because so much depends on them, as doors both to status and to a lucrative career. In preparation for them, an extraordinary amount of energy is put forth. Yet Narendranath was ready to give only as much time to academic examination as was unavoidable. The rest of his time and energy went, as we have seen, to meditation, to extracurricular studies, to music, to exercise, to debates and discussions. Above all, the ever blazing inner spiritual urges did not permit him to set great value on the worldly prosperity a university degree would afford him. Academic competition and high grades interested him not in the least. Only at the time of his examination did he busy himself in assigned reading and then only to pass. Indeed, his academic study was generally a last minute affair and dependent upon his prodigious memory. Up until a month before the BA examination, he had not read a single page of Green's Short History of the English People, which was one of the textbooks prescribed. He did not even own a copy. So he procured one and vowed that he would not leave his room until he had mastered its contents. In 3 days he knew the book thoroughly, but there were other books to read and studies to master. Thus, when the days for the examination drew near, Narendranath retired to his maternal grandmother's home nearby, where there were less noise and fewer distractions. There he confined himself for days at a time, studying day and night. He took a vow to the effect that he would not leave the room until he had mastered the daily task which he had chalked out for himself. In later years, he described his pre examination trials as follows: I sat in the room, book in pot of strong tea or coffee by my side to keep the brain from getting overtired. When I felt inclined to sleep at night, I would tie a rope to my foot. Then, if I fell asleep and moved to make myself more comfortable, the rope would jerk me, and I would awake with a start. In this room, Noren often used to sing between his bouts of study. There was a young widow in the house opposite across the lane. She often came and stood by her window unknown to him and listened to him singing. On one occasion she crossed over from her house, and in the dim light Narendranath saw her standing in the doorway of his room. She was young and she had come. She had seen him often without his knowledge and bore great love for him. She had heard him singing this night. To her it was romantic. Narendranath was amazed. He had never seen the girl before. He fell at her feet. Mother, mother, he exclaimed, emphasizing the word. Why have you come? Let me regard you as I would my own mother. The girl understood. A moment later, and Norin was alone. The next day he changed his coat and was never seen again in that room. Already his great renunciation was being foreshadowed. On the morning before the BA examination, we find Norin in a strange mood. Fling away all books, for what shall learning be in the presence of the Lord? This was how he felt. The deeper self in him had risen and had asserted itself. We find him standing outside his college mates' rooms, singing absorbedly, almost ecstatically, his face radiant. He began with the opening verse of the song: We are like children, little understanding. Shall we not rely upon him, the ocean of wisdom? Again it was a song of praise. Sing ye, O mountains, O clouds, O great winds, sing ye. Sing ye his glory. Sing with joy, all ye, the suns and moons and stars. Sing ye his glory. He sang and talked until 9 o'clock. A friend intervened and reminded him of the examination. Narendranath paid no heed. He appeared for the examination the next day and passed. Narendranath had become adept in music by this time. It had indeed become second nature to him, and a source of joy and inspiration to his family, his friends, as well as to himself. Frequently, the students at the General Assembly's institution gathered round him to hear him sing. There would be perfect silence except for the singer's voice. Not only was Narendranath a great musician, he was as well an authentic theoretician of music. This fact is proved by a treatise on music entitled Sangita Kalpataru in Bengali, published by Sri Chandicharan Boshak in 1887. The book was mostly compiled by Narendranath and later completed by Sri Vaishnavcharan Boshak. In its elaborate introduction, various aspects of the science and art of vocal instrumental Indian music are discussed with masterly knowledge and insight. The major part of the book, named Shongita Sangroho, contains devotional and inspirational songs composed in various languages of India. In the appendix of the book, biographical information is provided about the composers of the songs. Scholars are of the opinion that this learned introduction was written by Narendranath. Though at the time Narendranath himself was struggling against poverty, he compiled this book solely to help the poor publisher. On the creative side also Naren was strong. Later in life he composed several songs and hymns that are now used in religious worship by the devotees of Ramakrishna Vivekananda. From ancient times in India, the art of dancing has been considered an art of the gods revealed by Brahma himself. And of the gods, she in South India as Nataraj, king of dancers, is the most dynamic dancer of all. It seems almost inevitable that Narendranath, devoted as he was to Shiva, would have learned this manly, nay, godly art as well as that of music. He had a strong, beautiful body, and more than that, a beautiful mind and a highly developed aesthetic sense. Thus, when he was dancing and simultaneously singing, every movement of his limbs scintillated beauty, and the eyes and the ears of those who watched would be filled with a unique experience of gracefulness. Those were days of the first stirrings of political awakening in India, and physical culture was considered to be a hallmark of patriotism. Surendranath Banerjee and Ananda Mohan Bosu were thundering from the Students' Association, founded by them, that young Bengalis must be physically strong and aggressive. Narendranath, who was always quick to catch what was constructive in the time spirit, joined Ombu Guho's gymnasium to practice wrestling. Many young men from respectable families used to throng the gymnasium, and Rakhal, later Swami Brahmananda, was one of them. Narendranath began now to interest himself in issues of the day, especially in the view of the Brahmo Samaj. The activities of the Brahmo Samaj were dynamic and new, in sharp contrast to the moribund state of Hindu society, and its leader, Keshav Chandra Sen, the eloquent hero of 100 platforms, was the idol of young Bengal. We shall state here very briefly the underlying principles of the Brahmo movement. A nation's travail in passing through a new birth brings in its train movements of reform. A new vision seeks expression while the established order wants to conserve its traditions. From the clash between these two come the reformers and the reactionaries. In brief, the Brahmo Samaj was the outward expression of an endeavor to liberalize and at the same time conserve the evolved traits of the Hindu race. Its coming into existence in the year 1828 was the result of the awakening inspired by the illustrious Raja Ram Mohan Roy, a man of gigantic intellect and inflexible will, and a man who had the courage and prestige necessary to lead an attack on the evils which threatened the very existence of the nation. He knew that if Hinduism were to survive, it would have to be at the cost of many religious and social customs. Later, Maharshi Devendranath Tagore and Keshav Chandra Sen became his most powerful followers. Indeed, it was owing to these two influential persons that the life of the movement was assured. This movement protested against certain forms and tenets of orthodox Hinduism, such as polytheism, image worship, the doctrine of divine incarnations, and the need for a guru. It offered a monotheistic religion which repudiated all this. On the social side, it demanded the eradication of the caste system, the recognition of the equality of men, the education and emancipation of women, with the raising of the marriageable age. It was a tremendous task Brahmo Samaj assigned itself, one requiring endless patience and wisdom. But it lacked the means to carry out these reforms, nor did it recognize that reforms must come from within, that imposing them from outside can have no lasting effect. The movement, however, was progressive in its views, and it is not to be wondered at that it captured the imagination of young Bengal. In Narendranath, it aroused a of thought and feeling, and he came to regard the Samaj, whose meetings he often attended, as an ideal institution which might help to solve all life's problems, individual or national. He was imbued with the same ideas as the Brahmo leaders. He knew the burden of caste and had chafed under its rigidity. He had no sympathy with polytheism and image worship. He also felt that the women of his nation must be educated. Thus, he espoused the cause of the Samaj with all earnestness, and it was his fervent hope that the strength of thought, depth of feeling, enthusiasm, and personal magnetism, which were characteristic of Keshav Chandra Sen, and through which he influenced his numerous followers, would one day be his. In 1878, there was a split in the Brahmo Samaj, and a number of its members, headed by Pandit Shivanath Shastri and Vijay Krishna Goswami, formed a new society on May 15, 1878, called the Sadharan Brahmo Samaj. Narendranath identified himself with the new organization, and his name can still be seen in the roll of the original members. He also joined at this time a movement for the education of the masses, irrespective of caste, creed, or color. His intense desire for freedom made him willing to identify himself with anything that promised liberation from obsolete methods and willing to cast aside whatever might interfere with his gaining a larger vision. He was not content with passivity. He wanted to know the why and how of every phenomenon, mental or spiritual. Indeed, it would appear that Narendranath's versatile mind sought to encompass the entire range of the Renaissance, religious, cultural, and national, of his time. It is said that he also used to frequent the Hindu Mahamela of Nabagopal Mitra, whose gymnasium has been mentioned in a foregoing chapter. The Hindu Mahamela was an organization devoted to the all round welfare of Hindu life and of the Hindus as a nation. The chief element of Narendranath's character was purity. He was inexorable in this respect. In youth, one is often open to many influences of a dubious nature. The opportunities for questionable adventures. But Narendranath's mother had made him understand that goodness was a matter of personal loyalty to herself and to the family. Then, too, something always held him back, as he himself later remarked. Though a boy to the core of his heart, in all that called forth the spirit of manliness, he stood as one of another world when it was suggested that he enter upon devious paths. In this connection, the testimony of a college mate of Narendranath cited. This person, who in his youth did not have a particularly fine moral sense, later on changed his ways and became a disciple of Swami Vivekananda. Speaking of college days, he said that even then Narendranath was a flame of spirituality. Though this person frequently made sport of his college mate as being over puritanical, yet he said there were times when he felt depressed beyond words in Narendranath's presence, for he would then feel his own moral deficiency in its fiercest color, in all its degrading reality. He said that spirituality literally from Narendranath as an overwhelming influence. He was not alone in saying so. Other companions of Narendranath also said that they perceived the same radiance of purity. All through his life, this virtue continued to characterize him. It was the background of all his thought and feeling. He always considered purity the cardinal virtue and made it so in his life. As he came to know the principles of the Vedanta philosophy, he believed that without chastity, or better said, without purity, spiritual life is impossible. To him, in his manhood, purity was not a state of resistance to evil, but an overwhelming passion for good in each and every aspect, burning, radiant spiritual force. It related itself to all forms of life. It became the keynote of his message. It outgrew for him its spatial definitions, developing far beyond the idea of sex into the actual vision of divinity and truth. He realized the truth of the great teaching of Jesus. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. Yes, he knew it. It was only they, only the pure in heart, who see God. The spirit of manliness, or was it something vaster, higher, more profound, ran through all the experiences of his youth. One becomes conscious of him as a power. It was not through weakness that he was good, but through strength. Brahmacharya, absolute continence, was his ideal for the student stage of life. Brahmacharya viewed as hard intellectual labor combined with and governed by a great personal purity. The stage of preparation of in mind and heart for the divine vision which shall come, as the scriptures say, to those who lead that life. The boy Narendranath had become a brahmachari in spirit. He had accustomed himself to regard every woman, as all monks should, as mother. His purpose was fixed so far as intention and character went. But though he had entered into a serious mood, he did not understand as yet the full purport of life, and his enthusiasm, though deep and abiding, had not as yet been tested by difficulties and doubts that were to come. He had not yet known, nor could even begin to know, that struggle of soul which inevitably comes with the tempest of thought. He was all idealist. His spirit nourished itself upon idealism and ideal things. He had not, even for a moment, known the pang of disillusionment. The horizon was roseate for him. Youth sees only the ideal as in a dream. It requires much pressure of circumstance, much thought, and much overcoming of the sense of defeat, vision of the ideal, and actuality in the domain of the real. I repeat, it requires much pressure of circumstance, much thought, and much overcoming of the sense of defeat to make the vision of the ideal and intellectually and actuality in the domain of the real. The inward spiritual urge was becoming very strong now. During his youth, two strikingly dissimilar visions of life would come up before his mind's eye as he would go to sleep. One was of a life of ease and luxury, the life of the senses, of the enjoyment of wealth, power, name, and fame, and along with all this, the love of a devoted wife and family. In short, the worldly life. The other picture was of the sannyasi, a wandering monk, having no possessions, established in the consciousness of divine reality, drifting in the current of God's will, eating only such food as chance might bring, and resting at night with the sky for roof, in the forest or on the mountain side. He believed himself capable of realizing either of these ideals, and he often pictured himself in one or the other, for he felt these two were within him. Two painters, one the spirit of desire, the other the spirit of renunciation. But the more inward he became, the clearer became the picture of renunciation, while the worldly one began to fade until finally it disappeared. Thus thus the spiritual self of Narendranath gained mastery, choosing the vision of desire, the only way to the vision of God. For a time, the intellectual atmosphere of the Brahmo Samaj satisfied him. He felt uplifted during the prayers and devotional songs. True to his uncompromising nature, he strictly observed the Samaj's tenets. Indeed, it is said that when he came under the influence of the movement, he took to vegetarianism. An interesting anecdote is told in this connection, which throws some light on the relationship between Narendranath and his father. One day, Narendranath quarreled with his sister Swarnamoyi, charging her with serving him a fish curry from which the fish had been taken out. Vishwanath, who was bathing in the courtyard, overheard their altercation and angrily shouted, "His ancestors for 14 generations lived on calms and snails. Now he has become a Brahmadatya, lead ghost, meaning ghost of a Brahmin here, a critical allusion of to Brahmo influence on Narendranath, and will not eat fish. I repeat the words told by Vishwanath, that is the father of Swami Vivekananda. Ancestors for 14 generations lived on clam snails. Now he has become a Brahmadatya and will not eat fish. But though Vishwanath said this, he never carved the liberty of his son in this matter. In fact, the notable Brahmo leaders, Maharshi Debendranath, Pandit Shivanath Shastri, and others visited the Datta family at one time or another. With the rest of the Brahmo Samaj, Narendranath believed in a formless God with attributes as distinguished from the absolute of the Advaita Vedanta. But unlike the others, he was convinced that if God really existed, he would surely appear in answer to the sincere prayers of the devotees. He felt that there must be a way of realizing him, else life would be futile. And presently it began to dawn on him that if God was to be realized, he was no nearer the goal than before he had joined the Samaj. In his longing to know the truth, Narendranath turned to Maharshi Devendranath Tagore, who was regarded by many as one of the best spiritual teachers of the time. He had been to see the Maharshi before in company with some friends and the later had advised them to practice meditation with great intensity. Later, when the Maharshi was living in retirement in a boat on the Ganga, Narendranath went to him alone, burning with the desire to know God. His sudden appearance startled the venerable old man. Before he could say a word, Narendranath, tense with excitement, flung out the question, Sir, have you seen God? The Maharshi was unable to answer and contented himself with, My boy, you have the yogi's eyes. Narendranath came away disappointed. He went to the leaders of other religious sects, and not one of them could say that he had seen God. Where then should he go? He then remembered Sri Ramakrishna, whom he had met for the first time in November of 1881 at the house of a devotee of his named Shurmitra. Narendranath had gone there to sing, and the master, greatly attracted by his music, had made inquiries about him and had even invited him to Dakshineshwar. So Narendranath decided now to go to Dakshineshwar and put this question to him. This decision was reinforced by the following incident. When Narendranath had refused to marry, Ramachandra Datta and other relatives had tried in various ways, all in vain, to persuade him to bow to his father's wishes. But when Ramchandra, who had already been visited, who had already been visited Sri Ramakrishna at Dakshineshwar, came to know that Narendranath had declined to marry for the sake of pursuing spiritual enlightenment, he said to him, "If you have a real desire to realize God, then come to the Dakshineshwar instead of visiting Brahmo Samaj and other places." Around this time, Surendranath Mitra, who was a neighbor, also invited him to accompany him to Dakshineshwar in his horse-drawn carriage. Narendranath accepted the invitation and in the company of two of his friends went for the first time to Dakshineshwar one day in December of 1881. We shall see later what happened there and what was Sri Ramakrishna's answer to the question. This meeting was to open a new chapter in the spiritual life of Narendranath. This brings us to the end of this fourth chapter on his college days. It's a fulfilling read as usual. I would like to invite Pratik to speak. Thank you everyone for joining. Anyone else willing to speak, share their thoughts, or ask any questions can feel free to request for the mic. Hi, Pratik.
Hi, good morning, everyone. So, Happy Women's Day first, Sonali, to you, and happy Holi to all the others, those who are
Happy.
celebrating today.
Yes.
Yeah, so I believe this is the beginning phase where we are getting familiar to the life of Swamiji as a spiritual identity. And yeah, there were places where we came to know that he visited various places. Did not get rightly on the target in the first go. So as we see, like even though he was quite determined and focused to his ultimate goal, the goal of salvation and spirituality, he had went through various ups and downs and came across various people, organizations, those were having a different of you know uh, getting one's soul towards the path of spirituality and all. So yes, I mean. Based on this incidents that has recently like we observed in this chapter right from the beginning, I just left a part of a few minutes for this chapter, but yes, I believe the philosophy of Swami Vivekananda and giving up the renunciation, everything for the sake of renunciation and all, are the ways where we'll leave all of the desires behind, and our spirit only will be going towards the way of its destiny. So
Yes.
yes, so
Mm.
also some of the saint and philosophers of our area across what we call yoga as of now. It's a cult that everyone who is performing some of the say exercises and all, they call it they have mastered yoga or they are practicing yoga. But actual yoga has eightfold path. That's Ashtanga yoga that was preached by Lord Buddha as well, and other philosophers also. So that ultimate carry away the eightfold, but and like if we say they are in the sequence, then it'll be yam and niyam, and then pratyahar would be there. After that, the phase comes that's called asan, and those are the physical exercises or the postures that we usually carry. But the most difficult things are the yam, niyam, and pratyahar, in which we are uh, have to follow certain rules and certain do's and don'ts uh, in the form of eating habits, in the form of living life with the celibacy, um, having not being angry attitude and all these things. So it's keen for every person to attain first three phases, and then we may proceed towards asan and dhyan and pranayam and all. So I guess this chapter was beneficial or informative for specifically those of the three phases initial to attain the samadhi, the ultimate destination towards Almighty.
Mm. Yes. Thank you for your thoughts, Pratik. I actually enjoyed the parts where he had, um, he was continuously having this inward spiritual urge all the time.
Yes,
We can see that anyway, right from his childhood, but it was intensifying during his college days. And since as a young mind, like it's very natural to be able to hear, listen, and grasp everything that any new idea, any idea that that is very energetic, or that feels like that it's towards your goal. uh, Young minds are always attracted towards that. So
yes,
I really enjoyed that part where he could, even when he was going to sleep, he would have the visuals of a very good worldly life or a life of renunciation, like the man leading a worldly life and that of a sannyasi, and one picture fading away, the picture of the worldly man fading away gradually, the spirit of desire fading away gradually, and the spirit of renunciation growing up better. And also, of course, that incident when the widow, the mention of the widow, where she was almost probably in love with Swami Vivekanand when he used to practice. He was studying in that particular quarter, and he used to sing in between. And hearing the song, she had probably fallen in him. And his response, the immediate response he had to her, right in that teenage itself, he was so clear about
Yes,
what is in his mind, and he would not dissuade from his uh, there's not even a momentary shift from the desire of the realization of truth.
yes,
And
exactly. I had came across one such another incident where one lady, perhaps she was not an Indian, she was of other foreign land, and she was impressed with the personality and the I must not say we can say a look, but whoever in spirituality, they would have kind of a divine visual on. We can see a bright light on their forehead. Those who are in the path of spirituality, we commonly call it as a tej on their head, like the aura of spiritual or the saint people. She was quite impressed with personality, the way of his speaking, and the fearlessness which was evidently visible on his face. So she came across came to Swamiji, came near to him, and she indirectly, not directly, she was proposing to him, but rather she indirectly tried to communicate that if I was to have a child, I wish he would be like you. So indirectly, she wanted that she was expecting to have a child from Swamiji, but um, at a very less than a moment, Swamiji got her thoughts, and he just told her that if you want a child like me, why not I would become your own child? So they said that from today onwards, I'll consider you as my mother. And he just bowed to her feet. And she was like a quite have had a setback, but she was much happy as well with the way Swamiji has said that he was not showing even a moment of attraction towards a woman or anybody, like whatever could be the fact, not just woman. I must not say that, but any of the desire that would distract from his path of spirituality, or no, we can say the salvation. And like it was a no less than wonder when a person like who is gathering his own senses and just becoming say less than 18 years of people shouldn't be allowed to marry, shouldn't be allowed to this and that, and they must be pushed for studies and all, but it's not like that. See, all of the people would have different grasping capacity, and if we see limits of human beings, even in the today's era, we are able to see very young children are making establishment of their own business houses and all at a very young age. They are grasping too much of knowledge, which may be not be able to be achievable by any of the common person. But yes, Swami Vivekananda was indeed a different personality. Like within a short span, less than 40 years, he lived his own life in that way, plus enlightened others to live their life in his way, the way he lived, or the way one person should live as per what instructed by our forefathers and the earlier civilization of us. And that's why he is despite post 100 and more than 150 years of his, we can uh, we can be in the same phase where we could imagine that how his life would have been, and how we can improvise our life and livelihood uh, seeking inspirations from his.
yes, absolutely, absolutely. And can I mean all the chapters, all the lines that I read from this book, each and every, I cannot actually. Only in the first chapter I was able to summarize, and I am just not in a position to summarize any of the chapters. It feels like the mention of Keshav Chandra Ghosh, um, uh, Raja Ram Mohan Roy, Debendranath Tagore, the mention of Vijay Krishna Goswami. All these are great people who have contributed hugely, and the importance of Brahmo Samaj in the Renaissance period of Bengal, or you can say even the Renaissance period of India at that time, the participation it made, the way Rajmohan led, Raja Ram Mohan led those movements. Uh, we probably need to really read much more in detail, because if you have noticed, one of the lines said that sometimes to save one particular, at that moment, to save the Hinduism, these wrong practices had to be targeted and removed. The Satidaha Pratha and all sorts of things, or the introduction of widow remarriage, or the education of women education. So all sorts of very difficult tasks led by these great men, and the accumulate amount of energy at that point of time, it's like I really feel I mean, even by reading through the pages, it feels so energetic and enthusiastic. I just can't imagine how that would be probably if we were born in that time. Like probably that amount of energy and the inclination towards truth would be as, I mean, it would be in the air. It would be like we say, love is in the air, like that. The inclination towards truth, the seeking of truth would be in the air, probably, because of all these great men participating together, right? And even in the poetry spaces, we have read about Maharshi Devendranath Tagore. He was also a very enlightened spiritual person, and he had many spiritual experiences, and he had also written books on his spiritual journey. He had a great influence on Rabindranath Tagore's life. And then again, there is always this God in forms and formless God. Both is there. It's amazing to see Swami Vivekananda rushing to Devendranath Tagore and asking this question, "Have you seen God?" and not getting an answer. And he says, "Yes, I see the yogi in you." And then he goes to Sri Ramakrishna Paramhansa, who says, "Yes, I have seen God." So we are going to probably read about those experiences in the next chapter.
Yes.
Where
Yeah,
yes,
I actually have some of the philosophies as to our part we have certain sect of Vedanta philosophies are there where we had this if you know Swaminarayan temple are there in Kolkata as well in the other parts of India as well. So they are the followers of the preachers of the Vishishtadvait philosophy, which was actually very first coined by the holy saint Sri Ramanujacharya. And whenever we like perhaps if you might recollect yesterday's day before yesterday's statement, I just said that in today's day when we live our life and we are able to recollect the history that has thousands and lakhs of years ago on this land of India. um, when we says that we are Indian, the reason why we are Indian and still we are Indian despite of all of these invasions and colonizations and whatever happened in the past history, we are what we are because of these people, those who for a never a fraction of second thought for themselves and rather they always thought for the sake of humanity and all. So compared to the Western civilization, I would just say that Indian civilization, what we are taught into our household and whatever we are taught in schools and all, the current day, the present day world are getting self-centered. They would think for their own happiness, they would think for their own choices, they would think for their own desires. Rather than Indian society or Indian civilization till 19th and 20th century was all about for the sake of society. If we say we had scholars or people with the higher degree of education, higher level of professions. Say Sarojini Naidu was there. We had Mahatma Jyotiba Phule. We had Gopal Krishna Gokhale. Mahatma Gandhi was there. Subhash Chandra Bose were there. All of those people were doing well with their life, had their choose their own like a profession of lawyership. Mahatma Gandhi was quite popular in the South Africa. Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel was also a prominent leader as well as a lawyer of the state of Gujarat. If we say earlier, it used to be a state of Bombay state whole, the state of Maharashtra in present day, and state of Gujarat in the present day. Before 96, there used to be a one collective state of Bombay, and from the entire state of Bombay, Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel was the one who was having the biggest office of this law practice, and also we can say that all of these people were doing very well. Had they not way of freedom fighting for us, we would still be in the colonization era, and all those people's family would be ruling our country because they were so much doing well with the finances, so much the knowledge and all. But just for the sake of society, our country, and we can see none of the family members of Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel or Mahatma Gandhi and are there in the uh, like we say in the field of administration or politics and all. So even Sarojini Naidu, Sucheta Kriplani, and you, since you are belonging to Assam, if you know, there was a girl named 16-year-old girl named Kanak Lata was there, where in one of the foreign like building was there for British officials and all, on which they were intending to hoist a flag of our Indian nations, and there was like a tremendous firing happened by British people, and there on there itself, like a lot of people got died, but the hands were changing for hoisting the flag, and they were passing it on even in the position they were dying. And there was a woman called Kanaklata who was at the age of 16 years, and still she was keen to hoist the flag. So that was the spirit of the people. But now we see our even our Indian people are getting quite having the concentrated mindsets just for their own life or just for their own family. When we say like
Yeah. Sorry to interrupt, Pratik. Verily agreed. It's 11 a.m. I'd like to we have 1 hour spent on
yes,
this chapter. I'll just I'm sorry to interrupt, but what I was trying to say of overall what you said on that particularly, I get your point completely, and that's the problem. Basically, if we digging deeper, the problem here is probably more of the selfish approach and the selfless approach,
yes,
more to do with that aspect. If even if we are not able to let's just take the problem set of problem inside our house only, not just forget about thinking on a geographical level, or countries east or west. Forget about that part. Even in a family, you will see that within families also there are conflicts. There you'll see certain individuals just thinking about themselves and not the rest of the family members. So this is something that the world has always suffered from the times immemorial. Advantages of the people with this kind of mentality where the people are thinking just about themselves is high, literally high, right at these times than those times. But this is always there, and that is why we need to study, read, or understand the great minds, because from there we get to know how we are actually, we can actually get away from these shackles of the selfish way of thinking, because in the end very selfish, uh,
yes,
in not in the literal meaning of its term. Probably if you are actually selfish, then will be selfless. What I understand is your selfishness will never be accomplished if you are not selfless. If you are not doing for others, if you are not able to extend your consciousness, awareness, or feelings, or if you're not able to be touched by anything and everything that exists, if anything and everything is not able to move you enough, then you are not actually existing. You are disconnected with the entire existence. So your entire the entire existence and you are in a resonance all the time. So the moment you disconnect yourself, that is, you're blocking yourself from any kind of interaction with the entire existence, be it universe, world, anything. So in that case, if we are not, connected, then we are doing to ourselves also. That is an illusion. That is an illusion of being selfish. To think that yes, I'm doing good to myself, that is enough. Let me not think about others. No, that is not actually the truth. So only the great men who had great clarity of mind were able to identify that and work towards that. Yes, that is there, and probably now is the time, I feel personally, that we should go beyond, just comparing things, and the comparison should somewhere end. Comparison is probably, comparison is such a pattern that gives rise to jealousy, and it it is at all not required to compare anywhere, not even between individuals, or even self comparison. I do not find any reason behind. Like, if I have something to learn, if I really motivated by the content it has in it for me to learn from, then why would I compare my own performance yesterday and today? That's not required. That's not required. What should drive my, what should motivate me is the content of learning. Every day I should be enthusiastic and energetic to learn something new. That is it. Why there should be any comparison? Comparison brings in disappointment if you're not performing up to the mark, whatever expectation that you have set. So this is cropping up from desire. So you are indulging desire, you are indulging expectation, you are indulging comparison, you are indulging jealousy. Required at all. Target at the base, remove it, and move forward. That is what I think. I'll quickly go to Aniket. He has requested for the mic, and then probably wind up for the day. We have office and all. I think, Pratik, you are also at office probably. So, yes, Aniket. Aniket, you are able to hear me? Am I audible?
Yeah, you're audible, Sonali.
All right. I don't know why then Aniket is not speaking. I can see him in the speaker spot. He had requested for the mic.
Yeah.
Aniket.
Yeah,
Okay,
hello,
maybe
hello.
some issue.
Good morning, Sonali ji. Wishing you a very happy International Women's Day, first of all. It's been,
Thank you.
I'm a person has been not aware of Swami Vivekananda history. Like maybe in school time, I have read about it, but now at this age, I'm a person who is not that much knowledgeable when it comes to Swami Vivekananda history. But today, the chapter four, I have missed the chapter three and one, two, and three. So now after this I will try to attend all the chapters so I can know more about it. And basically when I'm see like Swami Vivekananda ji is like an icon when it comes to India, whether it's India, US, because he's famous all over the world. But sadly, India haven't like popularized Swami Vivekananda ji in that perspective, because I haven't seen any movies based on Swami Vivekananda's life. Not much books, like not books. It's not books, but like you should have libraries, more libraries, universities, a lot more information about Swami Vivekananda on TVs, at least on the government news channels. Like for example, DD National. They're trying, but before this I haven't seen any kind of like awareness, among the young children, students, and college students, knowing about Swami Vivekananda ji. So, what you think? Like,
Hmm. Yes, you are absolutely right. I agree on that completely. The problem is sometimes I think, I mean, even if you look at life, if you look at the surroundings, if you even look at
ha, ha, ha.
you will feel that the sky has enough to offer, but we are not looking at the sky.
Sky, yeah,
This, if you look at the sky enough, you can get actually probably the all life lessons that you need to lead a
need
life.
to live, yeah.
The problem is we do not observe, we do not look at things.
Hmm.
That is something intrinsically we have. Okay, we as humans have both the ways all the time. We choose always the, not so good ones. We have a tendency to do that. So most of us fail there. But coming to the point that you said that Swami Vivekanand being such a great personality, such a popular personality in both East and West,
Yeah.
his wisdom has never been shown to us enough. That's very true. I have uploaded the first three chapters, the first two chapters in my YouTube channel. Like all the
Yeah, yeah.
recordings are there.
I will definitely try to go through it today. Uh,
Yeah,
as being a student of civil services, I need to have more information about Swami Vivekanand, and
yeah.
that's my fault. I haven't been aware of that.
No, 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 that's fine. But the thing, it can start any day, and
Yeah,
it's very true. We haven't seen enough of Swami Vivekanand. The amount of things we could have gained from his knowledge, his wisdom, his life. Just
yeah, yeah,
39 years he lived. Just 39 years he lived, and what he has done. What he has done. It's
yeah,
just beyond inspiration. Like and I think, I mean, he is probably one of the very few who could get into the minds of different kinds of opinions. Like,
yeah, yeah,
usually
absolutely.
ideologies are very conflicting. One ideology will conflict with the other. But Swami Vivekananda is like a bridge who will talk to all kinds of minds.
Minds,
He's
yeah,
so much with reasoning, and hence and he was not just in words, he was in action right
yeah,
from his childhood. So there are so many instances. So I am having this visualization in my mind to actually make shorter videos also on particular incidents, because chapter wise sometimes it is not possible to summarize all the chapters because it is so much descriptive, so much full of event. So probably I'll try to create smaller videos on certain incidents like that, but that's going to take time. For the time being, it's like chapter wise uploaded on my YouTube channel.
yeah. Absolutely, I will look forward to it. I'm very excited to watch all the first three videos on your YouTube channel. Basically,
So,
the current, if you see the BJP government, they are trying to promote more leaders, properly the Hindu leaders, and I don't find it anything wrong in that. But yeah,
Aniket, I'll just refrain from discussing anything
yeah,
hardcore
absolutely.
political or even religious in this
Yeah, yeah.
space, because when the main reason behind why I refrain from such hardcore discussions is because
Mm,
when we are on the surface level, we are not able to go deeper. So we will
yeah,
have to go beyond those limitations of religion or
yeah, yeah.
politics to get into our minds. This is the sole purpose. So I'm sorry. You probably are making a very valid point, or we're about to say something even more valuable. But sorry, in this space and in this YouTube content, I do not really want to have
No,
anything
I
particular
was just
target.
trying to say that the current government, whether it's like, to be very honest, there is some kind of awareness of when it comes to Swami Vivekananda, like, but I wish, like, as we have the national kind of awards given to the players and people who do good work for the society of Indian society. There should be an Swami Vivekananda award also. Whether it's in flame sports or in any kind of that's where people will try to get more information about Swami Vivekananda.
True,
So
true.
yeah,
Very true. Even in schools, I think we should be, schools is the time when we actually uh,
yeah,
mm, get to find our role models. The minds are so
mm.
young and vibrant. Uh, I wish we could get to learn more about him at that period of time. Um,
Yeah. Actually, I have. We used to have, but the information was very limited. You should have a
Limited, yes.
proper subject on Swami Vivekananda ji. You know,
Mm, right. Very right.
yeah,
Yeah,
All right.
I would agree
Yes.
with Aniketan as well, but the thing is that let's not see considering this everything with the political background, or we say as we compared with the selfishness and selflessness and all these things. Uh,
yeah.
these all things are just for the framing, so that we could get an example of how those principles can be applied, or where it needs to
Mm-hmm.
be applied.
Yeah,
But rather
absolutely.
than, yes, but rather than, even I was also thinking of the same thing. But what Sonali, I believe, have what your intention behind this discussing of this book reading of Life of Swami Vivekananda was that just to extract the morals, just to extract the we can say that techniques, or
Mm-hmm.
rather than what was the life, what was there in the life of Swamiji, and what are in the life of ourselves, rather than
Yeah, yeah,
looking at
yeah.
their view. I
Mm.
guess she was targeting to what and how Swamiji achieved everything, and how
Everything in the life. Yeah.
yes, and how we must learn from his life, and we must apply it on our own life, um, irrespective of comparing to others or anything. But if we are
Mm.
applying it in our life, I guess every individual should authentically extract like morals and lessons from his life, and should apply on their own life, so that we might not need to compare ourselves with the others, or no other will compare themselves with ourselves.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely true. And I think education is the people who are more interested in education, like Swami Vivekanand will connect them more.
Yes,
The people who love to read books, the people who want to be in arts field, not even in arts like commerce and science, everyone can read the books. Basically I'm trying to say the people who are into more like to learn about the Indian culture and the Indian history, they will
yes,
connect more to Swami Vivekanand ji rather than normal people.
yes,
Yeah,
absolutely.
because
Yes,
yeah, there is so much to learn from him, like
yes,
thought process can be changed. uh, so, and I think in future it will happen,
yes. Let's hope for the best, prepare for the worst.
yeah.
And thank you, both of you, for speaking and for joining, for spending your time, for thinking that this is valuable. It is just my learning process that while learning, I felt that I would be sharing that one also, because whoever is interested can join. So thank you for your participation. It makes the process of learning even more louder. So thank you for that. Looking forward to participation in the coming days, and I'll be uploading the recordings in the YouTube channel for all of you to, go back to the channel and listen to any of the episodes anytime convenient to you. So yeah, let's meet tomorrow once again, and wish you a happy Holi once again.
Yeah,
And
thank you, Sonali, and apologies for seeking this discussion on at least on a slight different track, rather than what it was supposed to. Uh, but yeah, that's what like whatever was going inside my mind. I just wanted to give an overview, an example of what I had thought of this, and yeah, that's all.
no, no, that's not something that you need to apologize for. It's quite understandable. It's natural. Usually, these kinds of discussions get trigger on the way. That's quite understandable, and that is why I pitched in and I tried to set the context right, the tone of it. Mm, that is you got the purpose right, and any discussion is welcome. But yes, it is the boundaries of what the purpose is for this book reading, of course. So thank you very much once again. And Preejay, you have joined towards the end of the book reading session today. You can listen to the recording, and let's see you tomorrow. Thank you. Bye bye.